When I was 10 years old, my favourite book was called Mysteries, Monsters, and Untold Secrets by George Laycock. And when I grew up, I was going to live a life full of adventure and excitement, just like Indiana Jones. It's not surprising then that I have chosen a career to work in local government. Now, I know what you're all thinking, and yes, most local government business is pretty tedious, but it's also full of mysteries. You see, the story of local government begins in ancient times, well, 150 years ago before typewriters. And back when meeting agendas were handwritten and delivered on horseback, civic life was pretty hectic, and getting together for monthly meetings was quite a challenge. The continuing mystery is, why haven't councils caught up with the times and done things a little bit faster, now that we've got the computers and stuff? Well, I've got a theory. The risk monster. Councils spend an enormous amount of time and effort trying to make sure bad stuff doesn't happen. Like people challenging their decisions. I know people who believe it's their job to protect the public from themselves. You see, it's the risk monster that does strange things to public servants. It either makes them become self-centric, where they're fixated on saving their own ass, or they become organisation-centric, which is a huge fixation on process rather than outcome. So, you can only battle the risk monster in local government for so long before it drives you a little bit mad in the head, and my time had well and truly come. So I had decided that I had enough of working in local government, it was doing my head in, I was going to quit my job, throw away my profession, and go and do something else. That's when I went to the startup weekend. And after 54 hours of doing things, rather than just talking about them, I was hooked. You see, in the startup movement, they're not self-centric or organisation-centric. It's all about putting the customer at the centre of their business. In service design, you're trying to find solutions for real-life problems that people experience, rather than trying to create a product to sell to people. But you see, selling stuff to communities is what councils do all the time. So, what could local government learn from the startup movement? What could we do differently? Well, what if the council designed a process that put the people at the centre? What if, instead of making the community go to them, they went to where the people were? And what, instead of subjecting everyone to a tedious local government process, what if you packed it in to make an action-packed event? Town planning could actually be exciting. So I went back to my team and said, guess what, guys, I've got a crazy idea. I am going to do a 5-month district planning process in 5 days. Who's with me? After they all sort of freaked out and regained consciousness, we decided, yes, we would do it. We're going to try an experiment. Our target was the community of Kamo, which has 5,000 of Whangarei's 50,000 urban population. Our objective was to write a town plan for and with the community in only 5 days. Now, we were certain that doing things faster, it would be quicker and cheaper than the conventional method by putting it into this sprint format. But, the executive weren't so sure. So I thought to myself, it's my job to talk to people. It's what I'm paid to do. And nobody can have a problem with me doing my job. I'm just going to do my job in public on the street instead of in my office. But as word of my crazy plan moved through the organisation, apparently some people did have a problem with it. Some people within the organisation felt that involving the community in that initial planning process was just going to turn into carnage, or worse, we'd make promises that we couldn't keep. So instructions came down from the hierarchy through my manager, which said, you'd better pull this off or there'll be trouble. See, the reason there was a bit of tension in the air is because I had changed the council and put them in an uncomfortable position. I had changed their role from arbitrator to facilitator. I changed the council from organisation-centric to citizen-centric. You see, the conventional way of doing things is for the council to decide what's best for the community, put it out and consult on what the community thinks. People have got the opportunity to either support or oppose, and the council either accepts or rejects those comments. That process is divisive of communities and can cause huge factions. We were going to do things a little bit differently. So for the 6 weeks prior to our event, we published as much information as we could about everything that the community needed to know. And we put it in formats and in locations which were going to be engaging to all that community. We set up a Facebook page, Twitter, YouTube videos. We put in posters, flyers around town, on the website, mainstream media, and actually did door knocking and visited people actually on the street. We used lots of pictures and we used simple language to make things engaging. We asked lots of questions and we let the community derive the direction of the conversation themselves. One of the questions that arose through this process was, should Kamo have a supermarket? Over 2,500 views of that question and much online debate took place. Now, in a population of 5,000, and on the subject matter of local government planning, that's viral. You don't get more viral than that. And the reason people were getting engaged, it was because it was becoming more realistic. It was a two-way conversation. People were participating and enjoying having a discussion, a two-way discussion with the council. And the council staff were learning things about the community that we never would have found out any other process. Like Paul Kelly obviously doesn't do the grocery shopping in his household. A view shared by 3 people. You see, by doing it on social media and using this platform, the process is becoming more social, more human. They were no longer just a submitter number on a cryptic form, as council often saw them. And we were no longer the shadowy figures looking down on them from City Hall. By moving out of the City Hall environment and onto the street, we planners actually learned a thing or two about the community. It became evident very, very early on that the community lacked a focal point, like a park or a town square or somewhere to gather. Immediately, us local government lenses, we thought, oh, we're going to disappoint the community. We have to buy land and we've got no budget to do that. How are we going to solve the problem? Then, 2 people separately off the street, while we were interviewing them on the street, said, well, why don't you just close off that bit of road over there? Nobody uses it and you already own it. You don't have to buy it. And we're sitting there going, brilliant. Well, I would never have thought. And we're, okay, in fact, it's such a good idea. Hey, I know, why don't we try it out? We haven't got a place to do our big finale launch on Friday, so why don't we just have a street party, have a pop-up town square? Let's do that. So we decided on Tuesday, Wednesday, that we would build a park as well, just for fun. And so what was starting to happen, what we hoped would happen, was starting to happen. Now, meanwhile, on the website and through social media, the community were really, really getting behind us, didn't have anything bad to say about the council, which is unreal, unheard of. But they were helping each other as well. So people would ask questions, and they were answering it amongst other members of the community. One question was, where can my local community group meet? They had about half a dozen answers from members of the community offering advice. Somebody asked, why can't we use the school pool during the summer holidays? A big debate took place. The school participated in the online discussion as well, had a big discussion about health and safety and do you need a lifeguard, and took it up with other schools and the officials, and it's now very likely to happen this summer. You see, what was happening is we were watching a community growing stronger, and we were becoming part of that community. We were feeling the community's pain. Like working out on the street, we nearly got killed trying to walk the road across the road ourselves. We were trying to have conversations on the side of the street and noisy, smelly trucks rolling past and couldn't communicate with people. We bought our hot bread from the takeaway shop and had nowhere to sit down to eat our lunch. It had become personal. And what we hoped would happen was starting to happen. You see, a few weeks before the event, the local community group said to me, well, what if the council, doesn't do the things what we want them to do, and they haven't got money to pay for what we want? And I thought to myself, well, where did that sense of expectation come from? So I said, well, what would you do if the council didn't have the money to do what you wanted to do? What would you do? Complain? What if the council was bankrupt or simply evaporated overnight? Then what? You see, the untold secret is, if the council didn't exist, the communities would still be there. Back in the day, the community would have passed the hat round or done a sausage sizzle or other forms of fundraising to get the things that they wanted. So what's stopping you now? In fact, now, through the internet, you've got the global community to draw from through crowdsourcing. And it's not just funds that can be raised that way. Solutions to real-life problems can be found that way too. Instead of the council spending thousands of dollars from the eroding department doing a big traffic study, we can say, calling all engineers on Twitter, fly over here in Google Earth and give us some suggestions for a safe way to cross the street. You could have half a dozen suggestions from the other side of the world while you sleep. Get up in the morning, there's your answers there, run them past the community, and it won't cost you thousands. You know, it kind of doesn't make any sense to do things the old way. Yet the irony is, we were doing it the old way, the old way, before we learned to helplessly rely on the government to solve our problems for us. And it was this that we were hoping would happen, that the community would revert to times when they used to look out for themselves. The community had asked for somewhere to gather, a meeting spot where they could hold community events and create a buzz and sense of community. We had given the community everything that they wanted. And by we, I don't mean the council. I mean, we, the community, had gathered together, created a space, put on an event in an area of land that was already ours. The untold secret is there are large amounts of council business that are no longer necessary in today's digital age, and there are vast sums of money that can be saved by doing things differently. So my message to all those public officials out there is that you can achieve that dream you had of making the world a better place. All you need to do is to change your perspective. Look at your job not through the eyes of a public employee, but through the eyes of the community. Don't try and solve the community's problems with your technical expertise. Ask the community to help you solve the problems that are important to them. Instead of having the council at the centre of the process, put the community there, right where they belong. And for all those people out there who have learnt to helplessly rely on the government to do everything for you, I'll leave you with this final thought. You are the they, and they should do something about that. Thank you.